I'm Duncan McLeod, and this is TCS, the Tech Central Show. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/TechCentral. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our daily newsletter? You can do that at techcentral.co.za/newsletter. Now, I think pretty much everyone has, over a certain age, I should say, has fond memories of Nokia phones. I lost count of how many Nokias I've owned over the years. I think my favorite, I was trying to remember this morning, I think my favorite ever was the Nokia E71, which ran an old, stand to be corrected here, but ran an old OS called Symbian S60. Person who can confirm whether that's in fact true is Patrick Henchie, and he's the head of product at HMD Global, which is the home of Nokia phones in 2023. Patrick, it's really good to see you again. It's been ages. I hope you're well.
It has been a while, Duncan, and yeah, great to see you. And I can confirm that, yes, the E71 ran Symbian S60. I think that launched in 2008 was the launch of the E71. Sort of back to the
That's
small
a good memory,
screens. Good memory, small screens, QWERTY keyboards, and all the rest.
BlackBerry competitor kind of in the day.
Yeah, it was sort of definitely a business-focused device, amazing battery life, fully functional.
You could do your email on it.
You could type text really quickly, you could browse the web, you could do all that good stuff. And it's just amazing, sort of talking about different memories. We were sort of cleaning out a drawer the other day. We found some old devices. We found a Nokia N9.
Amazing.
Which we switched on and still worked.
That was the old multimedia device.
It ran Migo. It ran Migo operating system.
What was that? I remember that.
It was sort of like a full screen smartphone.
Yeah.
Running Migo, and it was just amazing at how small the devices were.
Yeah, tiny.
I think it had a 3.95 inch screen, and you look at that.
That was big at the time.
It was big at the time, and you put that in your hand. You look at that, and you go like,
how could I use this?
Did we really do stuff on these devices? But yeah, it's always good to sort of wander down memory lane.
Yeah, for sure. But I think everyone's got their own Nokia story to tell. Is the joke, is it the 3310 that was indestructible?
Yep.
I remember the editor of Computing SA at the time, which is a publication that's long defunct, but I remember her at the time driving her Jeep over it to see how whether it was really indestructible or not. And the phone survived.
No, that was also an incredible device. I think, sort of the predecessor to that was the 3210, which was sort of one of the first mainstream devices that did away with the antenna. So it's kind of this like total evolution of devices, and also just sort of reminiscing about those days, this way back when devices had big motherboards, lots of different ICs, and small displays, and nowadays you open a device and it's kind of like a battery and screen and a
tiny little integrated circuit. Yes.
Pretty much. So it's also just from a technology point of view, the journey's also been amazing.
What was your first Nokia phone?
My first Nokia phone was an 8110i.
8110i. That was a high end phone back in the day. Well, was that the curved one?
That was the curved one.
Yeah.
We did a sort of what we call a retro device. We redid the 8110 in 2018. But yeah, I was a technician. I worked for a company called RF Group, who were the Nokia distributors in South Africa.
I remember RF Group, yes.
You remember RF Group? So, from the mid-90s, I was, repaired devices. Okay. And as I say, so going back, the 1611, 1631, and then the 6110 changed everything. And then after that, we thought this was the explosion. And then the 5110 came, 3210 came, all those devices go, and then it just, the whole market just exploded.
Yeah. So in not looking at today's Nokia branded phones,
correct.
In the old days, what was your favorite?
8110i.
Really?
I love that first device. Because you could actually download ringtones on it. They had a web server set up, and you could actually sort of, it wasn't quite WAP. It was sort of a
this is the days of WAP.
It was a pre-WAP device, but you could sort of download these ringtones and all that. So it was quite exciting. And then after that, I've, over the years, I've had sort of a lot of favorites, but I really did enjoy using my XR20, which was our ruggedized device that we launched last year. What an amazing device, and just sort of, takes that whole worry from, life, using a device on a daily basis and dropping it. And damaging it.
Yeah. And I want to get into some of the devices you have in the market now, but while we're on the history, Nokia is a company that's been through one heck of a history. I mean, people forget where this company originally came from. Wasn't it originally a manufacturer of toilet paper?
It was a lumber company. It was a tire company.
They were in chemicals too. That's
correct.
Right, yeah.
And they sort of through their lifespan.
And at one stage, they made toilet paper.
They were a paper mill. So they started off in forestry, paper mill. So yeah,
it was byproduct.
And then they, went into rubber, and then I think sort of 80s, 90s, they were pretty much a technology company in terms of making set-top boxes, TVs, and then mobile phones and networking equipment. And then at a certain point, they sort of focused on the networking equipment and mobile phones, and then got into the mapping solutions. And if we look at where Nokia as a company are today, very much a leader in 5G technology and networks.
On the networking infrastructure side. And people forget, actually, people still associate the name Nokia with handsets, but the ordinary consumer I think, doesn't associate it with the telecommunications towers and equipment that actually makes the networks work as well. And that's a big part of that's their biggest business.
That's their bread and butter. That's their core business at the moment. And it just shows the strength of the Nokia brand that people still, associated with handsets.
Yes, indeed. It's been an incredible ride. And it's a lot, I mean, it all feels like ancient history now, where who was the chap from Microsoft who took over at Nokia to try to save it? His name someone.
Stephen Elop.
Stephen Elop. He famously, when he joined Nokia, spoke of the burning platform and the need to jump off. I'm not sure how well that really went at the end of the day. And then Microsoft, of course, bought the handset assets from Nokia, and we all know how badly that ended up going. Microsoft was very late to the handset market. I think by the time they were coming to the market, Google had already won with Android, and the rest, as they say, is history. And Nokia, the iPhone arrived on the scene, Android arrived, and Nokia became a tiny shell of its former self, but it's still around, and but in a very different guise today. And that's under HMD Global. Who is HMD, and how did this arrangement come about?
So we were born out of when Microsoft decided that they weren't going to do phones anymore. There were a lot of ex-Nokians or people who had a particular affinity and love for the brand who sort of decided that there's still a market here. There's still, the Nokia brand is still strong. There's still, shall we say, what the brand stands for, that trust and reliability. There's a gap for that in the market. There was an opening for pure Android. And on top of that, what people also forget is that there's still a massive requirement for feature phones in the market. And, throughout all these changes and throughout this whole life, feature phones have still remained a core part of the business, and it still is today for HMD, focused on Android smartphones, but at the same time, we still have a very, healthy portfolio of feature phones.
So HMD was spun out of Nokia. It was created by ex-Nokia employees. It's not owned by Nokia.
It's not owned by Nokia.
It's purely a licensing arrangement.
We sort of license the Nokia brand,
right,
and we manufacture devices under the Nokia brand, but very much sort of sticking to that ethos of this is the Nokia brand. We have test requirements that we do in conjunction with Nokia to ensure that all our devices, they are higher standards than any other of our competitors, just to make sure that these devices still will, live up to life's daily knocks.
Yeah, and I think the ironic thing about all these developments, and we are looking 10 years into the past now, but one of the ironic things about all of this is that Microsoft ostensibly bought the Nokia handset business to keep the Nokia devices out of the Android ecosystem, because they were trying to build Windows Phone at the time.
Yes.
And now Nokia is obviously in the market post all of that with Android phones. I mean, do you just looking back, you lived through all of this.
Yes.
You were working at Nokia and then subsequently HMD Global as all of this history was happening. I mean, looking back at it all now, what do you think perhaps should have been done differently? Do you think their different decisions would have had a different outcome today for Nokia?
Wow, there's been so many sort of explanations. I'm sure there's sort of Harvard business cases and
I'm sure.
all that type of stuff. There's the corridor talk, but really, for me, I've been on a journey. I've enjoyed the journey. I've learned so much. I've grown so much as a person through this whole tech journey. I've had good experiences wherever I've been. And, right now it's about, focusing and enjoying life at HMD and, sort of taking the Nokia brand further and with feature phones as well as Android smartphones.
Well, certainly an adventure you've been on over the last decade or so.
Yes.
But Patrick, tell me a bit about where Nokia or where HMD Global positions Nokia in the market today, both globally and in the South African context. Where are these devices pitched? What do you do differently to other device manufacturers that might entice consumers to the Nokia brand?
So every market is very different, and we're very cognizant of that. And we look at that and we say, right, in these markets, where can we succeed and where can we differentiate? So for South Africa, if we look at 2022, it's always interesting when you talk to different people and what their perception of the best-selling smartphone in the country is, or who sells the most smartphones in South Africa. If we look at smartphones, sort of taking data from, say, IDC, 70% of devices sold in South Africa cost less than 3,000 Rand. And that's not, that's a once-off 3,000 Rand payment.
Yes.
So you can imagine for a HMD when we started out, it was where should we focus on? Where should we look at? And that's where the biggest opportunity in the market was. And we still continue there today with our C series, which are a, budget-friendly, user-friendly, data-friendly device where, we drive devices in that. We also, if you look at the different channels in the market, you've got your prepaid and your postpaid channels. We definitely are more focused on the prepaid side, but then we also, Take a Lot or online has been a great sales channel for us, for people looking for high-end devices, running pure Android with, really great spec.
Yeah. And that's one of your selling points, is the fact that Android is not heavily customized. It's basically stock Android running on these devices.
It's basically, yes, it is stock Android running on the devices, where we have a couple of bespoke applications. There's a My Device application, which allows you to sort of interact with tech support. The camera is normally a bespoke application. Otherwise, the device comes with the Google services loaded on the device. So once again, if we compare ourselves to other competitors in the same price bands, there's far less bloatware on the devices or no bloatware on the devices. It gives the consumer more space, more control over their data spend, and total control over what applications they load onto the devices.
And presumably the fact that you aren't doing heavy customizations means you can push out updates quicker than some of your competitors.
Definitely. And I think that's also been a key point for us. So we streamlined the portfolios into C, G, and X. G and X, those run an Android One, part of the Android One program, whereby they get 3 years of monthly security updates. I think, that's 36 monthly updates on a device, as well as if there are sort of software updates where they get 2 OS updates. So if we launch a device on Android 12, you're going to get Android 13 and you get Android 14 for the G and the X series. For the C series, there's often a trade-off in terms of what is, how do we make a device more affordable and what do the consumers actually want in that scenario. And we're still proud that even on our C series, we do 2 years of quarterly updates on the device.
Security updates.
Yeah, because we very much start a product with this, security by design or privacy by design, where we want to keep the devices up to date and drive that whole conversation around it's okay to keep your device for longer. I think that with G series, we've now started on a journey where, in terms of differentiation in some markets, it's really about sustainability. And our device we've launched at MWC, the G22, it's one of the first devices that comes with a easy repair capability. So we definitely believe in that right to repair.
Oh, yes.
And this device actually comes with, there's an iFixit manual published on the web. You can order the tools. You can order sort of battery off the device. So one of the first things you'll be able to do on that device, much easier repair of battery, charging port, and display. Guards available, and just building in that direction where your device is going to be relevant for longer.
Do you plan to do that with all of your devices? Is this the first where you're?
It's the first device, and it definitely for us is a journey on sustainability, devices lasting longer, giving consumers more comfort with their device. It's connect the world without costing the earth. That's sort of one of the viewpoints of that.
I'm sure you guys have done some market research in South Africa about what consumers feel about the Nokia brand. I don't know if you've done that sort of research recently, but what is the view out there? I mean, as I mentioned at the start of our discussion,
yes,
people still have an affinity for the Nokia brand. They remember it from the old days when they used an old Nokia feature phone or one of the early smartphones.
Yes.
But today, when you speak to consumers, what are they telling you? What is their view of Nokia as a brand? So
once again, if we're talking in sort of areas where we are selling devices and heavily promoting devices, it's all about love it, trust it, keep it.
Sure.
Love my device, trust my device, and I keep my device for longer. So there's still definitely, and it's not just in South Africa. I have the privilege of sort of being involved in other African markets, and just, Africa, Middle East, there's still this affinity to Nokia. And also that comes from still having a very strong feature phone market, where for some people, their first device today is still a Nokia device.
Yeah.
And it's amazing also how many people, regardless of what smartphone they've got, they've still got a Nokia 105 in their pocket, which is Mr. Reliable, make calls. It's my torch. And I
have one. I use it to go running with.
And honestly, I still think the Nokia 105, one of the iterations of it, is probably still the most talked on device in South Africa.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah. I have a Nokia 105, which I put in my moon bag when I go running,
sure,
as an emergency backup.
And I mean, in today's, if we look at the challenges we're having with electricity at the moment, what's better than a device with sort of 30-day standby time? Okay, in emergency, you make a receive a call. It's got a torch on it. It's got a built-in FM radio that doesn't need an antenna. You can tune into a radio. It's I think in certain sort of segments of the market, there's still Nokia. Wow. Amazing, great devices, still number one.
Right. What about the top end? What about competing with the iPhone and the Galaxy S23 series? Is that something that's on the roadmap, or are you going to stick to mid-range and below?
See, once again, it's about where are the opportunities. Where are we going to be able to differentiate ourselves? And I think the journey we've taken with sort of certain markets where it's about the C series and meeting that consumer need, and if we look at other markets where it's about the G series, where it's about the OS updates, and now starting this whole journey about the easy repairability. So we'll see where that takes us. It started off with the security updates. It started off with telling people you can keep your device for longer because we're going to keep the software relevant. And now it's a case of, hey, hopefully you can repair your devices. Which are those components which get repaired the most often? Okay, how do we make that easy, and we move on from there?
So there are three Nokia lineups in the smartphone space. There's the C, which we've touched on, which is really the entry-level devices, and then you've got the G and the X.
Yes.
What are the G and the X? Just take us through where those are positioned exactly and what they do.
So G series, that would be, anywhere between so if you're talking price points, you'd look at sort of between 4,000 and sort of 6,000 Rand.
Okay.
Those devices are Android One phones. They give you 2 years of security, or 3 years of security updates, monthly security updates, and 2 years of OS updates. And really, it's about keeping your device for longer.
Okay.
X series, where we, they're devices that they pushed us a little bit, to sort of make what is now considered a mid-range device. If we look at the price points at, around 10,000 Rand, which is now crazy that it's now considered a
mid-range. Is terrifying.
Mid-range devices, but, using a great processor, memory, and, great imaging capability on the devices. And also, once again, giving you that security of 3 years of security updates, 2 years of OS updates on the devices. And then also with that, we introduced the T series, which was a range of tablets. So
I saw that, yes.
Yeah. So we've got the T10, which is an 8-inch tablet, and we've got the T21, which is a 10.36-inch tablet. Once again, giving people that option of security updates as well as OS updates on the devices. And once again, that sort of those devices really fit into the security by design and privacy by design. We actually have a website where you can go and check Nokia. You can just Google Nokia security updates, and you can actually see a list of all our devices. You can click on each and every single device, and it will show you when each security patch was launched, and that. So we've got this amazing track record on that of releasing these updates. It's not just something we say we do. We actually show, and we're very transparent about how we do that.
Right.
And then, one device we spoke about was the XR20.
Yes.
And we've now just announced the XR21. And that was very much a device which took the rugged devices you currently get and put that into more mainstream, everyday look and feel. So you don't feel like you're walking around with this behemoth device. It's a normal looking device that looks like it has a cover on it, but essentially you don't need a cover for it.
Okay, very nice, very nice. And I'm sure there's a big market for that. I'm amazed actually here in South Africa in particular, just looking at people's phones and how many screens are broken and cracked.
I call it the Spider-Man edition.
It's actually remarkable. I would guess that 30-40% of phones out there are actually have broken screens.
It is, and just talking about that with our C series and our G series devices, what we did is we took a decision where I call it that from counter to car comfort, where we actually. Especially on the C series devices, where the majority of them come with a factory-fitted screen protector on the device, as well as we put what we call a TPU or a clear plastic cover in the box. So straight away, when you get your device, you can put a cover on it, and your screen has got some protection to it, which for a consumer, once again, it drives that sort of value conversation. It's like, wow, this is what I'm getting. Because there's nothing worse than, buying a device and dropping it before you get to go and, purchase your accessories for it.
Exactly, yeah.
So, that's another addition or value that we add for C-Series devices.
How important is the South African market to HMD Global?
Very important. I think we were instrumental in driving the conversation around the C series, which I think up until 2021 had driven around 16% of our total sales. Not the South African market, but just C series in general. And it's a market where we've had, we've been consistently in the top 5 smartphone brands in South Africa in terms of volume sales. Feature phones, we been consistently number 1 or number 2 in terms of feature phone sales. So, South Africa market is very, very key to HMD Global. That's where our, shall we say, our regional hub sits in South Africa, looking at sub-Saharan Africa.
I was going to say, there are quite a few South Africans who were actually involved in the launch of HMD Global originally, right?
Well, if you remember, it was 2017. We had a function here. That's how long ago. It was almost in June. June will be 6 years from when we launched our first devices, Nokia 3, Nokia 5, and Nokia 6.
Right.
And there were, there still are a number of South Africans involved in the in
I seem to recall there was a South African person involved in the original keynote launch.
I was there.
You were there?
I was there.
But there were others. There was a lady.
R2. There was R2. There was Justin Meyer, who's our VP for Sub-Saharan Africa. Justin is still there. So I mean HMD and South Africa and Nokia in South Africa have got a long relationship.
Yeah. And I'd be remiss, before I let you go, Patrick, I'd be remiss in not asking you about the feature phones, because you have over the years released some very cool sort of retro-looking devices with up-to-date tech in them. There was the banana phone a couple of years ago. I forget the model name.
That was the 8110.
That was the 8110, the banana phone. Okay. And you relaunched that as the 8110 as well. That
Correct,
was what it was called. Okay.
So 8110 4G. Which
other devices have you done that sort of pay homage to Nokia's history?
We started with the 3310. And that was the privilege to be at Barcelona when we sort of launched.
That was a lovely looking device.
Yeah, the 3310, the relaunch of that was amazing. Whoever thought that a feature phone would get that much attention? Then it was the 8110. Then we've done a 6310, which was a slightly bigger screen. We've done a 5310 music device. We've done the 8210 4G as well. And also, once again, keeping up to date, as much as 2G is still very relevant. We have started, moving in that direction where we have feature phones supporting 4G technology, giving crystal clear quality over VoLTE or voice over LTE.
The operators require that. I mean, the operators want to move away from 2G and 3G at some point.
That's always an interesting debate. There are some markets in the world where they've completely sort of switched off 2G and 3G. So those markets, it's 4G feature phones are sort of your entry level. But yeah, I think. Do
you still have 2G only devices?
We still have 2G only devices. I think 2G in Africa is still very relevant. Still very much used for voice on devices.
Yeah.
It's once again, it's that sort of old faithful long battery life. You can always get hold of me.
Yeah.
My smartphone might have run out of battery, but my feature phone hasn't.
Dependable feature phone will carry on working for weeks.
And that's also something that we've really focused on with the smartphones is you sort of, long battery life, optimizing battery life by not having all these sort of third-party applications and their, data battery life. So that's a big focus for us on our devices.
Yeah. And these special edition, I'm not sure what you call them, the special edition phones that you bring out that pay homage to old Nokia phones. I mean, they get a lot of people talking. Is that the reason you release them? The fact that people keep talking about the Nokia brand and, wow, look at this, remember this device from the old days, and it helps with your marketing? Or is it actually an important part of your
very
lineup?
Much an important, but it just also it shows the kind of the love for the Nokia brand.
Yeah, still there.
It's not just about a device. I think for us, if you talk to some of the designers, it's very much about crafting something and making something that people are going to enjoy and people are going to look at. So it's not just, here's a slab of glass, put a battery on it and send it out. There's kind of like a lot of thought, and they're very passionate people behind the scenes making it happen.
Yeah.
And they've got that sort of, that history and that love.
Yeah. And of course, everyone remembers Snake.
Everybody remembers Snake.
Everyone loves Snake. You can still play Snake on these feature phones.
You can still play Snake on the feature phones. Yes, it's still available.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Patrick Henchie is head of product at HMD Global. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and chatting about Nokia today. Much appreciated.
Duncan, my pleasure. Yeah, hope to come back someday. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.